Sonic Frontiers marked a deliberate change in direction for the Sonic franchise, and I couldn't be happier. With the focus on writing and lore finally being given proper respect again, along with the shift towards more epic, action-oriented gameplay and boss battles, I am super excited about the future of this series. But the last thing we want for this momentum is for it to be wasted. If you had your dream come true, pie-in-the-sky sequel to Sonic Frontiers, what would that look like? I know what mine would look like. This is my pitch for Sonic Frontiers 2. First, we begin with Sonic's story. In the opening cutscene, we see him racing along the coastline while Tails flies the tornado over the water next to him. They're testing out a new piece of technology Tails is working on, detachable parts of the tornado that serve as floating platforms that Sonic can jump on. And this transitions smoothly into the tutorial, a short level where you practice high-speed gameplay running on the beach and platforming as you jump around on Tails' machine parts. The level ends as Sonic is standing atop one of the platforms and something zips past him, freezing his feet in place. Then we see the source of this ice. A creature launches itself at Tails. He just barely dodges the tornado out of the way and crash lands into the water. Sonic manages to break his feet free and launches into this creature, knocking him onto the shore. It's at this point that it tosses Sonic off of him, and we get a good look at this new enemy, Glace the Frigid. This character is extremely mouthy and immediately starts mocking Sonic. I thought you were supposed to be fast. I hope your little fox friend can swim. Oh wait, it's just you that's scared of water. My mistake. Whoever this guy is, he knows about Sonic and clearly hates him. And we transition into the first boss battle. This will be structured sort of like the fight with Chaos Zero at the beginning of Sonic Adventure. A pretty easy fight designed to show you the ropes, as you learn the combat system for the game. Glace uses ice powers, freezing you in place, shooting icicles, the works. Once you win, Sonic starts to gloat, but Glace laughs. For someone so fast, you sure are slow. Ever heard of a distraction? And it's at that point, something giant crashes into the water out along the horizon. Angel Island. Glace uses the surprise to escape, skating out into the ocean. Sonic and Tails both have no idea who that was, but decide to fly to Angel Island to investigate. As Sonic hops on the tornado, he rubs his leg, where a little patch of ice is still visible. This takes us into the actual game. The first open zone for Sonic is Angel Island. When he and Tails show up to investigate, they find quite the sight. Eggman robots are all over the island, as well as other strange creatures that sort of look like Glace. Sonic decides he'll start by clearing out the enemies, while Tails goes to find Knuckles. They split up and the gameplay begins. The enemies you encounter here come in a few types: Eggman's robots and 4 types of strange creatures. These are the members of the Nightfall Order. White ones have ice powers like Glace, yellow ones morph and change shape, blue ones are super strong, throwing boulders and slamming the ground, and green ones use technology, overtaking Eggman's robots and making them stronger. From here, you can explore the island, defeat enemies, and complete little mini-games that help Sonic learn more about how these creatures work. Also, the 7 Chaos Emeralds are scattered around the island. You can get them by defeating mini-bosses and clearing the action stages. Eventually, you'll run into both Tails and Knuckles in the overworld. Tails officially joins as a playable character after the two of you beat a green-infected Eggman mini-boss robot together. And Knuckles joins after you help him put out several of the fires threatening to burn down the island's jungle. Knuckles explains that not too long ago, Eggman showed up with a full army ready to try and steal the Master Emerald, but someone else attacked before he could even fight Eggman. It was a giant blue creature called the Dread Hand, and it was far stronger than Knuckles. It took both Eggman and the Master Emerald. So you have to track down Eggman to the center of Angel Island, where the giant blue creature is waiting and has Eggman trapped. Sonic tries to fight it, but when he can't win, Eggman begrudgingly gives him the 7th Chaos Emerald, and we get our first boss fight. Super Sonic versus the Dread Hand. The monster explains it is here to serve the Nightfall Order, and that the Master Gem will soon be returned to the Void. He doesn't give any more information than that, but Sonic manages to beat him. The Chaos Emeralds fly off, and now that Eggman is free, he starts cackling. He thanks Sonic and then gloats that he was tracking the other creature that took the Master Emerald and flies off into the sky after it. Knuckles gets very upset now that the Master Emerald is gone, but Tails gets to gloat now. He placed a tracker on Eggman, and now they can follow him. The three of you hop on the tornado and fly after him. From this point, we can set up Knuckles' arc for the game, exploring the world to find the Master Emerald, learning more about it, and his responsibility as its protector. As the curtains close on the first zone for Sonic, the Shadow campaign now becomes playable, so we'll hop over to that one. We start with a cutscene of Shadow racing down a desert highway at night, chasing after an Eggman ship flying up above him. He activates a communicator that puts him in touch with the Director of Gun. You may not remember, but in Sonic 06, Shadow started operating as an agent of Gun. The Director gives him his mission. Eggman broke into one of their holding facilities a month ago and stole countless valuable government secrets and protected artifacts. They've just recently been able to triangulate one of the cargo planes involved in the robbery, the one Shadow is chasing right now. Shadow mentions that it's very unlikely that their secrets are still on that plane, but the Director thinks it will at least lead them to one of his bases. Just then, the wing of the plane explodes. The Eggman ship starts to fall to the ground, and Shadow ends the call, racing forward to investigate. We transition into the intro stage for Shadow, using the falling debris of the plane to climb up to it and investigate before it crashes. This gives us a chance to become familiar with Shadow's unique mechanics and how they differ from Sonic, using more Chaos powers. At the end of the stage, Shadow makes it up to the ship, racing through it looking for the cargo. He calls the Director to report that nothing is in there, when he's attacked by a swarm of monsters, the Nightfall Order. We get a short intro to his combat against them as the Director tells him to get out of there. This is a timed battle. You only have until the plane crashes to defeat all the enemies. After beating them, Shadow sees another, smaller Eggman plane arrive and take a single piece of cargo from the crashing ship. Some sort of giant test tube that seems to hold a small person inside. He leaps from the plane right before it crashes and races after this strange piece of cargo, telling the Director that he will call back later. Things just got interesting. This takes us to the first open zone for Shadow, a giant underground Eggman base. Here, you're free to investigate the open zone, tearing apart the various Eggman robots and disabling the security systems. The two characters in this zone that you can recruit are, of course, Rouge and Omega. Rouge is here looking to steal a collection of crystals Eggman is using as energy converters. She helps Shadow once he explains that this looks like some kind of kidnapping. And Omega was actually captured by Eggman. You have to beat him in a fight before he returns to normal and offers to help. The zone ends once you beat the action stages to open up the innermost chamber, to find the test tube that was stolen from the crashing ship. Inside is a glowing yellow ooze and the silhouette of a small body. Before Shadow can open it up, a gigantic machine smashes into the room behind them, Eggman's final security measure. We get the boss fight for this zone, Shadow versus Eggman's latest mechanical marvel. After defeating it, they get the tube open to reveal a young boy that sort of looks like a wolf. As he stumbles out of the glass, Shadow gets a brief flashback to when he first took his steps out of a similar test tube on the Space Colony Ark 50 years ago. The kid starts shivering and asks where he is. Rouge tries to talk to him, but Shadow tears something off the wall, one of the many flags displaying Eggman's symbol, and wraps a strip of it around the child's neck. He asks if the boy can be brave, because being brave can get you through anything. The kid just nods. Before they can speak anymore, the boss robot spasms one last time and Shadow grabs the kid, saving him just as the giant metal arm comes crashing down where they stood. The self-destruct sequence in the base begins and the group races out of there, just before it all explodes. Shadow sets the kid down outside and asks for his name. The kid thinks for a second and says, "Scarf. Call me Scarf." He doesn't know anything about himself or where he's from. He only vaguely remembers some experiments Eggman ran on him. It's at this point that Shadow gets a call from the gun director. There's an emergency. An alien force is invading the planet right now. Shadow turns to race off, but Rouge points out that he can't just leave Scarf here. And Scarf clings tightly to Shadow, not wanting to be left alone. Shadow really doesn't like this, he doesn't babysit, but he reluctantly takes the kid along. And that is the end of Shadow Zone 1. Jumping back to Sonic's story, Tails tracks Eggman up to the North Pole, a frozen tundra on the outskirts of Holoska, as the second open zone. As the tornado flies through a blizzard, Sonic rubs his leg. The frost from earlier has spread. Tails says that they can't fly through the storm and need to continue on foot, and lands the plane. Here in Zone 2, the Nightfall Order is everywhere, especially the white ice-powered ones. Tails puts a ping on your map to all the places Eggman has been recently, and you begin your search. As you explore, there's weird architecture all around. Knuckles is shocked at how much it resembles Echidna buildings. As the group finds hieroglyphs scattered all around here, Tails is able to decipher them. We slowly learn that the Master Emerald was once kept here by a proto-Echidna tribe. These ancient hieroglyphs depict it falling from space, landing here in the Arctic, and these proto-echidnas discovering it and worshipping it. All the while, Knuckles speculates on what it means. If the Master Emerald isn't from Earth, where did it come from? Did the echidnas really own claim to it? Tails speculates that maybe this Nightfall Order is a group of aliens looking to get the Master Emerald back after they lost it. Around the zone, you run into Vector, who's been hired to investigate the strange lights seen up here at night recently, and Blaze, who traveled here from her dimension because the Soul Emeralds lost all their power, mysteriously just as the Master Emerald was taken in this world. During a mini-boss battle, the ice on Sonic's leg finally acts out, expanding and freezing him in place, only for Glace's voice to echo in his head. Sonic blacks out for a second and even attacks Knuckles. Glace is living inside Sonic's head through this ice infection and is trying to turn him on his friends, mocking him. But now that he's experienced it, Sonic is confident that he can control it and apologizes to Knuckles. Completing all the action stages, the group makes it to the North Pole, where a giant ice structure houses some kind of ancient technology that looks similar to the Babylon Rogues tech. This is when Glace appears, with a group of smaller Nightfall troops. Absorbing them into his body, he becomes the boss of this zone. During this fight, Glace mentions that he can see through Sonic's eyes. He's in his mind now, and if he ever lets his guard down, that is when Glace will take over again. Sonic asks why Glace hates him so much. The two of them have never even met, but Glace just laughs this off. He says he knows Sonic better than anyone. He even knows Sonic's biggest secret, the one he never says out loud. This causes Sonic to get very serious and win the fight. As Glace is knocked back and the Nightfall soldiers leave his body, Knuckles asks him where the Master Emerald is. He laughs and looks over at Tails and Vector, saying that they've already figured it out. Touching a piece of the runic architecture, Glace disappears into a beam of light that flies up into the sky. Left behind, the group pieces things together. Vector deduces that all the tracks lead directly to this point at the North Pole, and the storm is far too strong to try and fly anywhere from here without hitting the mountains or glaciers. And Tails figures that this place is some sort of runway for an alien spacecraft. The Nightfall Order took the Master Emerald here and then launched a ship into space. They will need to go to space if they want the Master Emerald back. That's right. In this game, Sonic and Shadow are launching into outer space on an epic adventure far from home, not unlike Season 3 of Sonic X. This game isn't called Sonic Frontiers 2. This is Sonic Final Frontier. With their new goal in mind, Tails cooks up a plan to build a spacecraft, and the group leaves the North Pole. Back to the Shadow story. He reaches this new zone, a remote village surrounding several dormant volcanoes. The Nightfall Order is here, attacking the people, and their violence is disrupting the tectonic plates, causing the volcanoes to rumble and erupt. Shadow is ordered by the director to save as many people as possible while neutralizing the alien threat. He tries to get Scarf to stay outside the dangerous area, but Scarf asks him, "If you didn't want me around, why did you save me?" Shadow responds, "I choose to protect this world, to keep it safe. And if you're going to be safe, you need to stay away from me." And so reluctantly, trying not to cry, Scarf stays away as Shadow races into the zone with Rouge and Omega. In this open zone, you have several mini-bosses to defeat, as well as puzzles and challenges to save villagers, getting them away from the monsters and the encroaching lava. As you do so, you can also locate the 7 Chaos Emeralds scattered all about. You run into 2 new characters to recruit in this area. Metal Sonic is found inside one of the volcanic caverns. The locals say he's been there for weeks, zooming around in the blazing heat, avoiding falling rocks, but they have no idea why. Shadow figures it out. He's training, tempering his metal body in the heat so he can become strong enough to beat Sonic. After a fight, Metal decides to join the party. Omega may want to destroy him, but Metal welcomes the challenge and will try to sharpen his systems by battling the Nightfall Order. Sage is also here. She's doing her best to study the Nightfall soldiers while stopping them from hurting people. If they kill these citizens, then they won't be able to serve in the Eggman Empire after all. She's on a mission from Eggman to study these creatures for some project that he's working on. When Shadow runs into Sage, he's briefly mesmerized by her, but quickly snaps out of it as a Nightfall soldier attacks. Shadow moves to dodge it, but then he sees that it wasn't aiming at him. Scarf has followed them into the area. Shadow takes a hit from the monster, keeping Scarf safe, and Sage quickly dispatches it. Sage approaches Scarf and asks him how he got out of containment. Scarf is scared of her, but Sage promises she means no harm. As Shadow sees Sage and Scarf interact, he gets a flashback to himself and Maria the first time they met. He steps forward, breaking up their conversation, to chastise Scarf for following them. Scarf says he's sorry, and that Shadow is the only one who's ever stopped something from hurting him. Shadow concedes and tells Scarf to stay close, since he's already here. Sage joins, saying she wants to observe Scarf along with the Nightfall soldiers. Rouge asks if Sage knows what Scarf is, and all she says is, "I only know Father thought it might be good if I had a brother." As you approach the end of the zone and collect the last Chaos Emerald, the largest of the volcanoes erupts, and a giant yellow Nightfall monster bursts out of it. It shifts and morphs shape, changing into a giant spider-like creature and growing giant wings. Scarf sees it and is terrified, and offhandedly calls it the Grand Ruin. Shadow asks what that name means, but Scarf isn't sure. They just need to stop it. Sage agrees, or else it will completely destabilize the whole region and flood the place in magma. Once you approach, the boss fight of this zone is Super Shadow versus Grand Ruin, an enormous, shape-shifting yellow Nightfall creature. As Shadow fights it, Ruin speaks to him. It calls Shadow a child of doom, and asks why he fights to protect this world. Shadow says he made a promise a long time ago. Even if the people of this world hate him, he'll still fight to protect it. He strikes the final blow, and Grand Ruin withers apart. But it says one last thing. You don't care if these people hate you, you would even embrace it. Child of Doom, your fears will be your downfall. The fight over, Shadow lands and the Chaos Emeralds scatter again. Shadow wonders how this Grand Ruin knew about Black Doom and what it meant about his fears. He regroups with the others and reports to the director that this area has been cleared from the invasion. But the director doesn't respond. The vice director answers. This invasion isn't just happening here, but all over the world. Countless cities are being attacked by these monsters. Right now, they're breaking into Gun headquarters. Shadow needs to get back there immediately. He tells Scarf to stay put this time, but Scarf asks Shadow, if the entire world is in danger, where in the world would he be safer than with him? Sage points out the logical consistency of the statement, and Shadow gets visibly angry, but decides to keep him around. The group leaves for Gun headquarters. Back in the Sonic story, the group travels to a giant city in the United Federation. Tails has a friend here with a lab, where he's been working on a spacecraft. They can get it working in order, they just need to pick up a few important machine parts from around the city. Unfortunately, when they arrive, they're met with a legion of the Nightfall Order, led by a swarm of Eggman robots taken over by a massive green enemy, the Disaster Network. It's about to attack Sonic, but Eggman shows up just in time, battling them back with his own machines. He is furious that these creatures have taken both the Master Emerald and his machines from him today, and is even willing to leave Sonic alone for the time being while he tries to destroy the Disaster Network. This is the third open zone, a giant sprawling urban landscape not unlike New Donk City from Mario Odyssey, where Sonic and the team have to defeat enemies, save civilians, and find the machine parts for Tails' spaceship. As you explore the city, Glace takes over Sonic's body just as he enters under a bridge, destroying the entrance and trapping him in the sewer system alone. Now separated from his friends, he races to get out while arguing with the Glace in his head, who's freezing the path behind him completely shut. Glace mocks him more. Sonic is the fastest thing alive. He's always running free, just like the wind. But the wind is too fast for anything else to keep up. Every time the world is in danger, Sonic manages to save the day with a smile, but Glace knows the truth. That smile isn't always real. Sonic gets scared, all the time. He's scared of what might happen to the world if he's not here to protect it. He's scared that his lifestyle of freedom might mean he's not around to save the day next time. Or, worst of all, what if one day he's not fast enough? He puts on a great show for Tails, but he's not invincible, and he was never as scared as he was on Starfall Island, as he lost his speed to the cyber corruption. At this point, Sonic finally snaps back at Glace. Who are you? How do you know any of this? And as he finally breaks out of the sewers, Glace gives his answer. He was specifically created to defeat Sonic, and his maker has seen inside Sonic's mind. The rest of the zone continues on without much fanfare. You collect the machine parts as well as the Chaos Emeralds scattered around the city. While you're here, you can recruit 2 more members. Amy, who's helping fight off the aliens attacking the city, and Tangle, who is looking for Whisper after she left to investigate the origin of these invaders. The final stretch is getting to Tails' lab at the center of the city. Unfortunately, that is where Eggman and the Disaster Network are currently fighting. The boss fight for this zone is Super Sonic teaming up with Eggman to fight the Disaster Network. In this fight, you have to destroy robots while stopping them from infecting Eggman's mech. While they fight, Sonic asks Eggman what the Nightfall Order is, and he explains that they are a unique alien species. Sage's field data has provided him with plenty of information that matches tests he's run on his own specimen. Their genetic material is similar in structure to the Black Arms, which invaded Earth in the past. While the Disaster Network doesn't speak, it is crafty, and after the fight is won, it infects a single tiny machine, sneaking up on Sonic and snatching away the Chaos Emeralds just as he reverts to normal. Eggman moves to stop it, and as the green alien teleports away, Eggman is taken with it. Sonic tries to catch them, but isn't fast enough. He returns to tell the group what happened, and Tails focuses on the positives. They can get the ship up and running within a day or 2. Sonic, with the ice infection spreading up to his body now, tries to appear optimistic. Moving back to the Shadow campaign, the group makes it to a large open desert with a series of military buildings scattered all about. Inspired by the real-world Area 51, this is the gun headquarters. There are agents all over battling the Nightfall Order. Shadow makes it his goal to liberate the main bases and make it to the command central to save the director. As they save people and explore the zone, Shadow and Scarf start to bond. Scarf asks Shadow about his past, and he briefly explains his former adventures. When Shadow describes Sonic, Scarf says he sounds annoying, and this makes Shadow smile. He starts to take a liking to Scarf, who even apologizes for not listening to him earlier. As you make your way through the stage, you run into Surge the Tenric, who's relishing in her battle against these aliens. She'll want to spar with Shadow at first, then choose to join him to fight the bigger monsters up ahead. You'll also find in one of the gun facilities a controlled singularity. You can enter this rippling portal and race through a level, reaching the being trapped at the very end and returning him back to the real world. Infinite. The singularity was created by the last energies of the Phantom Ruby, and Infinite had been trapped inside for months. Now finally free, saved by Shadow, the one who caused him to embrace his masked alter ego in the first place, Infinite asks to join him. True power wasn't something he could attain on his own, so instead he wants to learn from the very first person who ever caused him to feel fear. He joins Team Shadow. Eventually, the group makes it to the command center, where much of the gun tech has been overtaken by green Nightfall soldiers. The boss battle for this zone is a giant gauntlet of progressively larger monsters and mechs that, once defeated, morph and congeal into a giant amalgamation of all the colors, the Nightfall Melded. This is the boss of the zone. Shadow defeats it, saving the director and vice director. As the Melded tumbles apart, Scarf walks toward it in a trance, saying that it's calling out to him. Shadow pulls him back, asking what's wrong. Why is he doing this? Once the Melded completely disintegrates, Scarf snaps out of it. Just at this moment, Sage gets a notification. Eggman has been taken by the Nightfall Order and is no longer on Earth. The gun director recognizes her as Sage. They've been keeping tabs on her and know that she's been hacking their systems in the past few months. He tells her that there is a fleet of interstellar craft on the lower deck of this base. If she wants to get Eggman back, she can help get one of those up and running. They'll need to do it anyway. The only way to stop this invasion now is at the source. Sage agrees and the group goes to leave, but the director asks Shadow and Scarf to stay behind. He wants to explain exactly what Scarf is. Here, we learn that Scarf is an artificial life form, made from the DNA of Grand Ruin, the giant yellow Nightfall creature. This DNA was collected by Gun and stolen by Eggman. Eggman created Scarf. The director thinks he followed a similar process to how Gerald Robotnik created Shadow. And as far as Gun can tell, Grand Ruin, along with the other giant Nightfall monsters, Dread Hand and the Disaster Network, are the same race as Black Doom. More accurately, they're like cousins or brothers. And so, depending on how you look at it, Scarf is sort of like Shadow's little brother. Hearing this, Scarf is excited. He would love to have a family, and he loves that his hero is also his big brother. But this revelation is unnerving to Shadow. He rejects the situation. He rejects Scarf, telling him to never call him his brother again, and then he races away down to the spaceship, leaving Scarf alone with the director. With that, we shift back to the final zone for Sonic's story. Tails gets the spaceship up and running, and everyone gets on board. The ice from Glace has spread further up Sonic's body, and he sometimes hears him talking when his friends speak, constantly nagging at him. He didn't sleep at all the previous night and is feeling very off balance, but he presses on. They take off into space, and after some time spent traveling through the stars at light speed, Tails says, "This is very odd. The tracker they have on Eggman seems to be exactly at the center of the universe." Knuckles confirms it's faint, but he can tell they're headed towards the Master Emerald, although something feels very wrong about it. As they approach their destination, the group readies itself, and they arrive at the fourth open zone, the Nightfall Kingdom. A gigantic planetoid swarming with alien soldiers and various different microbiomes, deep canyons, molten lava pits, and caverns filled with rushing rapids. All of it stands in the way of Glace, who has with him the Master Emerald at the very center of the planet. Its green color seems to be slowly fading away, replaced with a pitch black. You travel all around this zone, defeating the Order and getting closer to the center. You can recruit one last member here, Gemerald. He was following his programming, instinctually seeking out the most powerful being on the planet at the time when the Nightfall Order invaded. He followed them here as soon as they stole the Master Emerald and wants to fight them to protect the Earth. He joins Sonic as you make it closer and closer to Glace, all while Glace explains everything. They now stand at the center of the universe, the birthplace of everything, where it all began billions of years ago. When everything came to be, there were two forces that were brought into existence. The first was entropy, the long, cold march to nothingness, the inevitable heat death of the universe. The first force was Glace's creator, the being trapped on Earth for millennia inside a digital dimension. The end. The second force was the opposite of the end, the Master Emerald and the Chaos Emeralds. They represent what is in your heart, good or evil, positive or negative. They are the beating hearts of the universe. The opposite of the end, the opposite of death. Glowing, burning life. As long as the Master Emerald exists in this universe, the end is confined to a physical form, limited in his reach, only able to destroy a single planet at a time. It was seeking out the Chaos Emeralds all those years ago when it attacked the Ancients' world to find the Master Emerald so it could be destroyed. The End had minions, his Nightfall Order, and the 4 generals, Dreadhand, the Disaster Network, Grand Ruin, and Black Doom, who were tasked with spreading across the universe to look for the emeralds while he was trapped. After the End was released in the events of Sonic Frontiers, and its physical form was defeated on Earth by Sonic, it created one last general, Glace, specifically modeled after Sonic to defeat him. Because the End saw inside Sonic's mind while he was in cyberspace, Glace knows all of Sonic's secret thoughts, and now he finally shares them with his friends. Sonic is terrified that he won't be fast enough, that one day he won't be able to save the day. He's worried that his carefree life might eventually leave him without attachments, that his friends won't be able to keep up with him. But this is when Sonic finally gets to respond to Glace. If one day he's not fast enough, he will just find a way to go faster. And yes, the wind blows free, but it also fills up the sails of passing ships and pushes at the backs of those marching forward. He's not ever going to lose his friends, they just crossed the entire universe with him. And now, they're gonna help him melt the nagging icicle that has been giving him so much grief. We transition into the Zone 4 boss fight, Sonic and his whole team versus Glace. Glace is no longer holding back, absorbing more and more of the Nightfall soldiers, and leeching energy off the Master Emerald, which seems to be getting corrupted. But as he does so, Sonic does the same, absorbing bits of positive energy off the Master Emerald to counteract the frost on his body, burning it all away. With one final strike, Sonic knocks Glace down, his icy body cracking and shattering apart, weakening him greatly. Sonic stands triumphant with all of his friends ready to take the Master Emerald home. As they do, Shadow's group rolls up as well, joining them. But Glace has one last trick up his sleeve. He realizes he was trying to take over the wrong hedgehog. Shadow's Nightfall DNA will be much easier to manipulate. Leaping at Shadow, Glace disappears as he phases inside of him, and Shadow falls to his knees. He struggles for a moment, but when he looks up, his eyes are an icy blue, and he has an evil grin spread across his face. But before we move on, we need to know how Shadow's group got here. So we're rewinding to the gun base. They all board one of the spacecraft that Sage has got up and running, with Scarf trudging on board, very sullen. Shadow is particularly angry and focuses on talking strategy with Sage. She confirms that Eggman is somewhere near the center of the universe, and this particular craft can get them there in about a day. As she's talking and looking out the window into space, Shadow has a flashback to speaking with Maria while looking out at the stars through the arc windows, and he quickly leaves. They make good time and eventually land on the Nightfall Kingdom, the opposite side of the planetoid from Sonic's group. As they step out to face the alien threat, one additional member steps out to join them, Whisper. She was warned about the Nightfall Order by the Wisps in her weapon and investigating around the gun headquarters. She snuck aboard their ship before it took off. She joins Shadow's team and they spread out to find and rescue Eggman while destroying as many aliens as possible. This side of the zone is just as dangerous, filled with twisters and thunderstorms, giant boulders rolling down off cliff sides, and a forest of weapons, all alien technology co-opted by the Disaster Network and trapping Eggman inside. You collect the Chaos Emeralds all around this area, and eventually make it inside the weapon-filled gauntlet, defeating the final embers of the Disaster Network and saving Eggman, as well as collecting the final emerald. Eggman reluctantly thanks Shadow, and Sage is very happy to see he's alive. She introduces Scarf to him, and Eggman and Scarf get a brief interaction. As he explains, Scarf was created by Eggman using the DNA of Grand Ruin that Gunn discovered in orbit. Eggman had a sort of pride in Sage that he's never felt for any of his other creations before, and he thought that maybe that pride comes from the level of sentience that she displays. So he dug up some of his grandfather's research and tried to make an artificial life form, not unlike Shadow. From this dialogue, it's clear that Eggman actually really loves Sage, but he doesn't totally understand that himself, and he would never admit it if he did. This conversation makes Scarf excited. He wants to bond with Eggman as a father figure, but Eggman flatly refuses him. He has no interest in creations that run away. And besides, Scarf was just the test run, the trial before making a physical body for Sage. Heartbroken again, Scarf makes his way back to Shadow. Scarf asks Shadow if he just doesn't like him, if he's not good enough. Shadow has friends like Rouge and Omega, so why doesn't he want Scarf as his brother? Shadow says his only acquaintances are thieves and killing machines. He can't have brothers or sisters or anyone close because they'll end up just like Maria. Scarf is confused and tries to ask, "Who's Maria?" But Shadow finally snaps. He's exhausted and trying to save the whole world, and this child just keeps prodding at him. He shouts that Scarf needs to leave him alone, to join his fellow monsters here on this planet, and go away. This scares Scarf, and he freaks out. His yellow Nightfall DNA activates, and he morphs into a giant, rampaging creature that constantly changes shape. Scarf becomes the monster that Shadow just told him he was. Horrified by what he's done, Shadow has a talk with Rouge. She chastises him. Scarf clearly just wants someone, anyone, to accept him. Shadow tells her that he can't be that person. The people around him always end up getting hurt. Rouge laughs at that and punches him on the shoulder. She says the only thing that hurt today was when he called her an acquaintance. Does he really believe they're not friends after all they've been through? Shadow thanks her and gets back up. He has been acting like the monster he's worried people will see him as. It's time that changes. And we move to the boss of Zone 4. Super Shadow versus a rampaging Scarf. Now fully embracing his Nightfall DNA, Scarf is constantly shifting shape, just like Grand Ruin, changing from a giant four-legged beast to an alien insect to a hawk to a serpent, all while Shadow tries to talk him down. He apologizes for pushing him away. Scarf was just scared and alone, emotions Shadow is very familiar with. He didn't want to let Scarf get close because he really did feel like a little brother. The last person Shadow allowed himself to get that close to died. He just didn't want Scarf to be taken away from him the same way. It was selfish, and he's sorry. With one final push, Super Shadow embraces Scarf, who tries to struggle and break free, but eventually he calms down, shifting shape back into his fox form and returning Shadow's hug. The Chaos Emeralds scatter, and the team regroups. Eggman explains that the Master Emerald has been stolen by the Nightfall Order, and he is going to get it back. It's a matter of pride at this point. Shadow decides that that's the best place to head next. The Master Emerald is probably part of their invasion plan. He's going to stop these aliens and return everything that was stolen from the Earth. Getting ready to leave, he asks Scarf if he's ready to join him. Scarf enthusiastically agrees, and the group makes their way to the center of the universe, where Sonic is fighting Glace. This takes us to the final story, one last campaign unlocked only after beating the other two. As we return to the Nightfall planetoid at the center of the universe, Shadow makes it up to meet Sonic, but Glace attacks him, overtaking his body. As the icy influence spreads all over Shadow, he sprouts wings again, just like when he was overcome by Black Doom's influence. But now, it's Glace the Frigid that is puppeting his body. With a wave of his hand, a blast of freezing chaos energy knocks everyone back, and Glace flies up to the Master Emerald. The blackness is overtaking the green. Here, at the center of everything, the Master Emerald is being inverted. Soon, its power will be completely gone, and the end will be free again, no longer constrained to a physical form, to wipe out all life through all of time and space. As the Master Emerald grows blacker, the ground beneath them starts to shatter apart. Sonic tries to get close, but he's easily knocked away. Scarf shouts to Shadow and even tries to push through the waves of cold, his body growing bigger to help him push through, but it's no use. Eggman is the voice of reason. There's no way they can beat the combined power of a Nightfall General and the ultimate life form. They need the Chaos Emeralds. Sonic agrees and rallies all the troops, all members of Team Sonic and Team Shadow, all working together right now. Here, they're going to travel across the Nightfall Kingdom and collect the emeralds one last time. Scarf pipes up. He introduces himself as Shadow's little brother and says he wants to help. Sonic grins at that and says he might want to take a back seat because this will be dangerous. Hearing that, Scarf shapeshifts, growing into a bigger, stronger form. The final playable character, Scarf the Morph. Impressed, Sonic lets him join, and we get a final open zone where you have to use the various abilities of every character you've recruited so far to find and collect the 7 Chaos Emeralds, all while the world is being torn apart and waves of cold radiate off of Glace and Shadow. After finding the last one, the team regroups and Sonic begins to transform. He turns into Super Sonic, and Scarf tries to use the Chaos Energy as well, but his body clearly isn't designed to handle it. Sonic tells him not to worry. They don't need Scarf's power for this fight, they just need his heart. We transition into the boss fight of this zone, Super Sonic versus Shattered Shadow. Using Shadow's body, Glace torments Sonic and Scarf. He can see inside Shadow's memories now. He knows how scared Shadow is of keeping Scarf around, that he's tempted to abandon him as soon as they return to Earth. Glace says that Sonic, Shadow, all of them are foolish. They've never understood the power of the emeralds that they use so liberally. They can't comprehend that every heart eventually stops beating. Every spark, every flame will one day be snuffed out by the icy cold of emptiness. Scarf starts to lose hope, but Sonic reassures him. Glace loves getting in your head and talking smack, but he is nothing more than that, a harmless brain freeze. If Shadow says that he's keeping Scarf around, then there's nothing else left to talk about. Beating hearts only beat harder when they beat for one another. Sonic manages to tear away the icy wings through the course of the fight and pin down this puppeted Shadow. Scarf runs up to the two of them, and the blue melts away from one of his eyes. Shadow starts to regain some of the control. As he fights against Glace, Shadow tries to tell Scarf to leave. I was wrong to let you get close. You'll get hurt because of me. You'll die because of me, just like she did. Shadow tells Sonic to finish him off, to save everyone, but Scarf isn't having it. He tells Shadow that it's okay to allow himself to be loved. You're scared to let people get close to you, but I know you can be brave, and bravery can get you through anything. With one final burst, Glace explodes out of Shadow, skidding to a halt right at the base of the Master Emerald. Shadow returned to normal, thanks Scarf, and tells him to stand back. He joins Sonic, transforming into Super Shadow. The two of them turn to face Glace, who has one hand on the completely black Master Emerald. He's surprised they managed to defeat him, but it doesn't matter. The inversion is complete. Rising up into the air, he cackles like a maniac as a familiar shape ripples into view behind him. The purple moon, the end, is finally released once again. All over the planet, the Nightfall Order fall to their knees and one by one turn into dust, being absorbed into Glace. The voice of the end booms from behind him. You have done well, my faithful servant. Now, we move forward into oblivion. Glace places his hands on the Master Emerald, and the end swirls into a mist behind him, also absorbing into his body. Glace gives one last sadistic smile before being permanently disfigured, transformed into a gigantic eldritch being of ice and death. The final boss, Permafrost. In this final conflict, both Super Sonic and Super Shadow must fly through space, dodging the life-ending waves of deathly cold to try and strike at the heart of Permafrost. They make a little progress, but the monster only spreads, infecting nearby planets and stars, creeping its cold into different worlds and timelines. They realize that even together, this won't be enough. They need to get the Master Emerald back to weaken him. Working together, they slowly chip away at the icy exterior until finally, the two of them are able to tear the Master Emerald free from the villain's clutches. But even though they have it now, the giant crystal still remains black. Sonic explains what they have to do. Reactivate the positive energy inside the Master Emerald by using the positive emotions inside their hearts. Each placing a hand on the emerald, Sonic and Shadow think back on their journeys here. Every moment spent showing off, saving people, joined by their friends. Sonic thinks of how he leaned on Tails and Knuckles to come this far. Shadow thinks of Scarf and the new bond they've forged. And in a burst of light, the green energy returns to the Master Emerald. Its shining light fills the screen, and when it dies down, we take a look at its influence. Hyper Sonic and Hyper Shadow. From here, we enter the final phase of the boss fight. The two Hyper Hedgehogs completely overpowering Permafrost. Sonic declares that he's never let the fear inside stop him from pushing forward. And Shadow says he'll never be defined by his fear ever again. With one final push, the two burst through the permafrost, the icy vortex evaporating in a blaze of warm, purifying light. As Glace and the End are erased from reality for good, the Master Emerald shatters apart, sending pieces flying in every direction. Sonic and Shadow drop down to the ground, exhausted, but they're quickly propped up by their friends. Scarf confirms it. He could feel a connection to the Nightfall Order and the End, but they're both gone now. Knuckles looks out to the stars. He's going to have to travel the cosmos to collect the shards of the Master Emerald, and he couldn't be more excited. He's been looking for an excuse to leave Angel Island. Rouge says she might just join him, and the two start to bicker. The rest of the characters start to make their way onto the spaceships to head home, but Sonic and Shadow stay behind for just a moment. They both take a minute to stare out at the stars, and then silently, wordlessly, they share a fist bump and move to catch up. And that is my pitch for Sonic Final Frontier. There are a lot of little details I skimmed over, including all the various character interactions and the specifics of the action stages. I know some of you probably rolled your eyes at Hyper Sonic and Shadow, but remember that in Frontier's Final Horizon, they gave us Super Sonic 2, which even had a full cyber power form. The reason Sonic Team has avoided Hypersonic has always been they didn't want the tiered power levels to get confusing. I think this proves that they've moved on from that way of thinking. And beyond that, I think the hyperforms should still be special, like a once-a-decade sort of thing. I don't want them in every game. Now, I started this video by saying that I wanted the sequel to Frontiers to mirror the sequel to Sonic Adventure, and I think I accomplished that. Sonic Adventure was the beginning of a new era. It featured Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Big, and a creation of Dr. Eggman. It gave us new lore about the Master Emerald and a watery creature known as Chaos, and was the introduction of a race of cute, tiny creatures called Chow. Sonic Frontiers is the beginning of a new era. It featured Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Big, and a creation of Dr. Eggman. It gave us new lore about the Master Emerald and the watery creatures known as the Ancients, and was the introduction of a race of cute, tiny creatures called Coco. Sonic Adventure 2 had a split of two separate stories, a heavy focus on Shadow, new lore about someone tinkering with alien DNA to create life, and a final battle where a previous boss, the Bio-Lizard, fuses with something resembling the Moon, the space colony Ark. In Final Frontier, we had a split of two separate stories, a heavy focus on Shadow, new lore about someone tinkering with alien DNA to create life, and a final battle where a previous boss, Glace, fuses with something resembling the Moon. The end. So, there's really only one question left. If this was real, would you buy this game? Stay frosty.